Okay, great. So thanks for coming. Yeah, it's nice to have a live class. I just love seeing everybody's face rather than just talking on the computer, feeling like a crazy person. Like, am I talking to myself? Da, 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 da. So yeah, no, this is great. So yeah, welcome. And we'll just, I guess it's a little bit after 8 already. We can sort of get into it, but it's nice to see everybody again. And this is the last class for this particular course that I'm doing sort of on refuge and BuddhaNature and these kinds of things, talking about emptiness. So next week, I'm lucky I have a month, I should say, off work. I worked very hard this last little bit, a little too hard for my age, I think. So I had about 6 trips back to back between Vancouver and 5 of them to Tokyo and 1 to Seoul, Korea. So tired, but I did that and I'm gonna get this long stretch of time off so I can be at home and we can work on our land and sort of getting our house ready, this and that. There's a lot of work we have to do. I was just out on the land looking at our yurts with our friend John, and we have to fix up certain things, and oh my God, it's so much work. Anyway, but I get to work on the land. I'm so happy. Already it's been close to a week that I've been home, and this is probably the first day that I feel kind of somewhat back to normal. But it's nice. So I'll be able to do live classes again every Saturday until, well, we'll have to skip it at the end of the month, I guess, Rinpoche's Mahamudra retreat. So I'll skip that week. I'll let everybody know. But until basically mid-June, I can teach in person, which I'm happy about. So this is the last class. It's going to be another sort of part 2 on talking about emptiness. And then next, what's that, the 14th? Yeah, so I guess, or is it next week is the Mahamudra retreat? I can't remember. Does anybody know? Or I'll have to look. Anyway, the next class we'll do, I'll just make a check here, will be question and answer discussion like we did, just to sort of sum up. So I'll put an email up reminding everybody, but it'll just be a discussion, a free-flowing discussion like we did a number of classes ago for the last course. So that's kind of where we're at. And then the next course I'd like to do, I've just been working on it last night. It's about 5 classes on valid cognition, or what they call pramana, which is a good, very sort of a short and condensed course on topics in pramana, not a whole lot of material, just sort of what I think is kind of interesting and important. So that'll be interesting and fun as well. I like teaching on that. Okay, so let's sort of get started here. I'll start with the Heart Sutra, like always. I can just listen along here. Homage, respects, and wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir in Masvaltra's mountain, in the great assembly of monks and the great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection wisdom, looking perfectly also at the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom shall look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty and emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. Do not produce and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element of no consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all the Buddhas reside perfectly in the 3 times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest and complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata Umgata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhi Soha. Shariputra Bodhisattva, a great being, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, O son of religion, it's like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so let's just take a moment again just to do our 9-round breathing. We'll do it 3 times just on our own time. So again, first 3 breaths coming out our right nostril, getting rid of desires, attachment. Next 3 breaths out of our left nostril, anger, reactivity, frustration. 3 deep breaths through both. Hold the last inhale just at your tummy there, mixing your mind, your prana, and your breath just around the navel area. And then when you're ready, release for the final exhalation. So just 3 times sort of on your own. Okay, so just finishing up just on your own here. I'll to start leading. I think we'll do a little bit of a shorter practice today, just a similar one to last week that I led. So let's just take a moment to visualize ourselves seated in a wide open space. The ground, again, the ground like lapis, wide open plain as far as the eye can see. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings, and we're meditating together. So the people closest to us, kind of like our own mandala of karmic relationships, and then going out in all directions to people and just sort of sentient beings in general that we don't know. So our mother on our left for the feminine side of our body, our father on our right for the masculine side of our body, people we love the most behind us as support, and people we like the least as, or just have issues with or whatever, as objects of our compassion and practice and healing. So concentric circles outwards, people just that we're related to, friends, co-workers, family, people in the neighborhood, moving out to human beings from all over the world, in this world and different ones, all different backgrounds, cultures, countries, and so forth. Countless animal beings as well from all the different ecosystems. I just feel it's almost like the whole Gaia, or sort of Earth, and I guess even different dimensions of animal beings are here with us, just countless numbers. We used to walk on the beach where we lived in Kits, and you just walk down on the beach and see all the different, crabs and clams and all the little beings running around. You just realize and that's just, that stretch of the beach, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. You just realize just how many sentient beings there are in the world. So all those little beings in the animal world aren't running around doing pujas or meditating. So it's this is why we have a sort of a precious human life to be able to do this, to be able to meditate on emptiness and karma. So just figuratively, we have them here to receive the blessings of this. It's their chance to meditate, their chance to create the karma to be able to practice in the future. In the same way, countless beings from the spirit world as well, just as varied and numerous as the animal world. So just in the spirit world, all the different realms, whether it be ethereal realm, elemental realms, astral realms, and so forth, they're all here with us. Different celestial beings, gods and demigods, and countless beings from lower states of rebirth. From hungry ghost realms, or the Preta realm, and hell beings, different hellish existences. And they're all here happy to practice and be together while we do this meditation today. It's a beautiful blue dome of the sky above us, and just visualizing in front of us, we're going to visualize just the central figure today of Lama Chopa, Losang Tubai Dorjishan. So just a little bit simple today. And that's Tsongkhapa. At his heart, Buddha Shakyamuni, and at Buddha Shakyamuni's heart, Conqueror Vajradhara and Vajradhatu Ishvari. So it's just like those little Russian dolls, the little eggs where you pull them out, and there's a smaller one in each of them. Similar kind of thing here. So like a beautiful big sun in the sky, Tsongkhapa is in lotus position, 3 robes of a monk, yellow pandit's cap. And he's holding in his left hand the begging bowl of medicinal nectar. Right hand is in the mudra of teaching, index finger touching the thumb, holding the stem of a white lotus at his right ear. And then at his heart, Buddha Shakyamuni, and how we usually visualize the Buddha, lotus position, 3 robes of a monk, beautiful golden energy body, holding begging bowl of medicinal nectar in his left hand, right hand in the sadhu mudra touching the earth. And finally, at Buddha's heart is Vajradhara and his partner Vajradhatu Ishvari. They're together, sort of Buddha's higher Sambhogakaya form. And they're young and beautiful and in sexual embrace and totally joyful and kind of like loving life, so to speak. And Vajradhara is in lotus position with his arms crossed around Vajradhatu Ishvari's back, and she's got her arms around his neck. He's holding a door chain bell, so bell on his left, door chain's right. She's holding skull cup, medicine nectar in her left, and curved knife her chopper knife in her right, and they're beautiful dark blue, sort of sapphire blue, wearing crowns and jewelry and so forth. And there's a little blue hum letter sort of at their heart level, sort of representing the enlightened mind or Dharmakaya mind of the Buddhas. And it's softly emitting rainbow light just in all directions. So a beautiful image in the sky here that we and all sentient beings are meditating on. And just feel that it's just a symbol, again, just that we always say the three beings here, a symbol of the three paths, three scopes of LamRim, I guess you could say. Well, even more than that, sort of three paths in the sense of the sort of more Hinayana personal path, Mahayana, and Vajrayana paths. So again, when we see in the sky Tsongkhapa, we say, well, that's our main day-to-day practice is in the Yana paths of the three higher trainings of moral discipline, concentration, and wisdom realizing emptiness. So we're always working on karma and emptiness, keeping our vows. When people meet us, we have to be an example as best we can of integrity and sincerity in our practice, moral discipline, sort of an open kindness to people, and that our minds are controlled and meditating on emptiness. So we have that, just an understanding of all of our vows and commitments. But inwardly, as we're seeing the figure now of Buddha Shakyamuni, the inner motivation here is a bodhicitta. So everything we do as bodhicitta is as a sort of bodhisattva training. In the three perfections in particular, giving, discipline, patience, concentrate, joyous effort, concentration, and again, wisdom realizing emptiness. But again, this is inwardly. We can think that this isn't, we're not publicizing this. Obviously, we're not trying to be a superhero bodhisattva and with our own Instagram account on how wonderful we are. Just rather that this is done inwardly, that it's basically all of our motivations throughout the day. And then secretly, personally, intimately, is our tantric practice, all the tantric yogas that we do represented by Vajradhara and Vajradhara. And this is just that our day-to-day practice, all the different yogas that we do are sort of between us, sort of our innermost mind and our guru's mind, or in our deity's mind. Our guru and deity are the same thing. That they're ultimately manifestation of our own awareness. So when we see this in front of us, that's what we're thinking. Please become one of us. Please may we be that. May we express our life in the same way as the three figures are expressed here. And so just taking refuge in our hearts here. I all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I'm generating bodhicitta. Through the virtues we collect by giving away the perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Now from the heart of Vajradhara and Vajradhara, just beautiful white lights and energies coming down, purifying us and all sentient beings. And just getting, this is sort of the blessings of refuge here, just purifying all of our negativities. That's getting flushed out of our body. Black smoke, and ash and soot and so forth. Yes, and all sentient beings are getting crystal clear here. And now the light turns color to sort of a golden energy going out. This is sort of the empowerment. One's the purification, one's the merit, so to speak. So this is sort of the merit or empowering or virtue energy going out, golden light. And nectar entering us and all sentient beings. Opening our hearts, raising our energy level. Good. Sort of glowing gold still, and just generating the four measurables. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. So golden light's coming down again, giving us love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. That's all sentient beings. The seven limb practice, making this Buddhist practice here. So prostration, offering, sort of confession, rejoicing, asking holy beings to stay, to teach, and dedicating. So again, just from our hearts, showing respect and devotion to the merit field. Remember, one is an old rabbi, I read an article once, said that he defined the sacred as that which is worthy of respect. And so just acknowledging the sacredness of all the holy beings in front of us here, as well as our own holy center, of the emptiness of our own mind here, seeing our identity and just sort of prostrating to that, showing honor and respect. It's the highest, most beautiful thing. Making offerings. So again, like I always do, like just beautiful flowers coming out of your heart in all directions. The merit field here. Either that or beautiful light offerings like candles or Japanese lanterns in all directions. Or all the pictures you used to see from Tibet or Nepal, the butter lamps when they do that for Sagadara, Wesak, or New Year's. Confession and rejoicing, standing up front here, sort of naked before the merit field here, all holy beings and all sentient beings as our witness. We know our issues, ones we don't, other people happily point out. So we have all sorts of flaws, character flaws, big issues, defilements, bad habits, and so forth, delusions. And we're owning them. That's our karmic profile. That's our karmic history. It's our karmic character. And the whole point of our spiritual path is the educational process of outgrowing all of these things. So we're acknowledging it's who we are. It's what we did. We are our actions. We are our thoughts. This is us. And the good stuff we're going to keep and develop, and the bad stuff we're going to let go of. And rejoicing in the good stuff that we do, that all sentient beings do, that all holy beings do, all the virtue, good energy, the kindness, the caring, the compassion, the wisdom in the world. And again, from our heart, asking all the Buddhas and holy beings, all of our gurus to stay, always stay in our life and always teach us. So we're always sort of putting that bridge out there, opening that, kind of tuning in, well, in the old days, tuning in the radio, or I guess sort of connecting to the internet, so to speak, connecting to Wi-Fi. You go into Starbucks, you connect to Wi-Fi. It's the same thing. We always have to be connecting to the Wi-Fi of all holy beings that are there at each moment in our lives, trying to teach us and reach us. And so for us, always please stay with us, make sure the Wi-Fi is on, and always have the programming I want to tune into and download, so to speak. Always be with me, guide me in samsara. And finally, dedicating all of our virtue, all the goodness that we're doing even today, meditating for the enlightenment, the awakening of all sentient beings. Okay, holding a mandala, purified universe at our heart here. And offer this, the ground sprinkled with perfume, spread with flowers, a great mountain, four lands, sun and moon. Seen as a Buddha land, and offer thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. Madam Guru Radha Mandala Kamyoti Yama, I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious gurus. And finally, again, golden lights and nectars are coming down, in particular from the heart center of Vajradhara and Vajradhatuishvari. They're in sexual embrace, and just from that space around their hearts, beautiful golden light nectars coming down into us and all sentient beings. So just like sunbeams, you know, when you get beautiful, the clouds sort of part there and the sun comes out, and the late afternoon warm sunbeams. And just like the sun's the same thing, it's giving light and giving heat or warmth and goodness. And now let's do the dissolution here. So we're blessed, please continue to bless us and guide us in this life and future lives. Just please dissolve into our hearts for inspiration and blessing. And so that request, Tsongkhapa in particular, three figures here starts to melt in the golden light. It's kind of like light being seen on a lake or on waves of an ocean here. It starts to sort of melt inwards and dissolve into his heart, into Buddha Shakyamuni. And Buddha Shakyamuni starts to melt into golden light as well. And he dissolves into his heart, Vajradhara and Vajradhatuishvari. Now they're just in the sky there by themselves. Sort of radiating out the sort of rainbow light here, 5 elemental colors. So white, yellow, red, green, and blue. All directions here. And they get really small, again, about the size of a sunflower seed. In a beautiful, pure blue energy. And they float down to the crown of our head, about a foot above us. Turn around, so they're facing the same direction we are. Just we say, please grant us your blessings. Very, very slowly, like a leaf falling into the crown, our crown chakra, to the central channel, and just in front of our spine, start to descend. And when they get to their heart, they pause there and then melt into blue light and dissolve directly into our root mind, our most subtle mind. So again, it's like you've got a big bowl of water and you drop a little bit of blue food coloring. It just instantly dissolves into that water. Just feel that all the wisdom, the compassion, and the power of all the Buddhas is now one with us. And our Guru's mind, our deity's mind, which are one. Buddha mind, Buddha's Dharmakaya mind is one with ours. And so all those potentials are activated and revealed. We will do a little bit of Vajra recitation here, breathing, so pranayama breathing. So just like last week, so when we breathe in, just bless that breath and that prana with the seed syllable Om, O-M. This is the seed syllable of the enlightened body of all the Buddhas. So again, when you breathe in, you have to mix sort of the sound with the breath. So if you want, you can visualize kind of like white light as you're breathing. And the most important thing is just your breath as you're inhaling is the same as the vibration of that syllable. So just like you're hearing, as your breath goes in, you're hearing that in your mind. Now, when you finally finish the inhalation and hold it for just that one moment, it becomes the syllable ah, H-A-H, one of the second holy symbol of the speech of the Buddhists, sort of the primordial mantra, so to speak, mantra of wisdom, ah. And that's again red if you do want to visualize the color in your mind. And then as we exhale out, it's blue color, and that's Hum, H-U-M, the enlightened mind of the Buddha, so enlightened body, speech, and mind. And again, as we're inhaling out, just that inhalation, that sort of air, that prana is blessed, is the nature of the Hum seed syllable. We'll do this for a few minutes here. Okay. Let's get on a meditation here. That's actually, I like that. That's a real nice meditation. That was one of the first meditations I was actually instructed when I started, which was really funny back in 1995 in Toronto. But it's amazing. It's also really the basis of a lot of really deeper completion stage practices around Vajra recitation. So when you're at that level and get instruction from your teacher, you'll see that, you know, by having done that, getting familiar even just with the concept of that, it's a very, very deep and powerful sort of alchemical transformation in your subtle body. You know, anyway, we know so much of this now just with science and just even in culture, just, you know, the importance of sort of internal messaging, just what you're telling yourself and how that affects the energy of your body, this and that. So rather than getting all negative, the inner voice sort of doing the mantra in your head with all the dramas in your head, what we're doing here is mixing our prana with mantra, which is really, really beautiful. So anyway, that's a nice meditation to do. Okay, so just concluding from last week, so the second part here, a few, I was just looking at some of my notes, and some of this stuff I don't know if I'll talk too much on. I don't know if it's really all that necessary, but just sort of concluding the different proofs of emptiness or ways of looking at emptiness. And of course, again, like I said, we'll keep coming back to that. This is sort of the big topic in Buddhism, obviously. So 5 ways to prove emptiness or see emptiness in things. So like I said, some of this is I might have mentioned last week. So first one being the emptiness of the one or the many. Is something, does it exist as one or many? So of course, again, when you're looking, even like I said, the concept of one or many, they're interdependent. This is a big thing. If you ever get whatever, for some reason you want to study medieval philosophy or Christian philosophy from the Middle Ages, this is a big issue, all these kinds of ontological issues because it's a huge discussion between, you know, God and creation. Are they the same thing? Are they different? How are they related? Are they one? Are they many? What comes first, God's will or God's mind? These kinds of things. It's interesting. And this also just is a big thing in philosophy, right from Plato, is on ontology, is what is the one, what is the many? It's actually kind of an interesting thing when I read it a lot, especially Neoplatonism. I see a lot of relationships between this and concept of emptiness. So for instance, I mean, as an example, like you get in Neoplatonism, ontology, the way things truly exist is as forms. Okay, we're not going to, don't worry, this isn't a class on Plato, but it's kind of interesting. So forms are the nature of things. In other words, truly existent universals outside your mind that are the basis for your conceptual life of knowing things. That's what Plato was saying. So these things are truly existent, but they're one, but they're also many at the same time. So this was a huge issue for Plato. It's like, okay, these are what's truly real, really real, the nature of things. And yet the nature of things is many at the same time because they're different forms. So what is the principle of the unity of that many? Well, it has to be something different than that. And so Plato was saying that what's truly real is actually something outside of ontology or being. And that's true being is what they call devoid of being, right? Or it's a privation of being. Anyway, this is sort of, you know, Greek and medieval philosophy. So what Plato would call, he calls that the one or the good. So in Plato's Republic, I think it's in book 6 or something, you can look at that. And this is a huge thing you get with Neoplatonism. Plotinus says the one, which is devoid of the intellect or the forms, again, is empty of being. Being comes out of the one. So St. Augustine ends up saying that one or emptiness is God, and from out of this comes creation. So there's a similarity. What's funny when you start talking, it is kind of similar in a lot of ways between what we're talking about in Buddhism, between ultimate reality being emptiness and conventional reality being the plurality of different things in the world. But the point is, what we're trying to make is the thing is that the one and the many are interrelated. And if they're interrelated, if you don't get one without the other, even just thinking them, then you're seeing emptiness right there, which is the idea that things are not outside of relationships. So this is the thing, Plotinus, who's the great Neoplatonist, is that the one is devoid of being, but being, the intellect and forms, come from the one. Well, how do they come? Like, what's the relationship there? The point is they can't have a relationship, but they're in a relationship. So he called it emanation somehow. And this is the big ontological question everyone's fighting on in Neoplatonism, and St. Augustine with the Christian side here starts attacking that. But that's always the issue, even in Christianity. How does creation come from God? They're not the same thing. They have to be separate, but they're related. So it's an argument on emptiness, even right here in Western philosophy. It is kind of interesting that way. So just the point you want to get here is one way of proving emptiness. Let's say your 10-year-old niece or something is, how do you prove emptiness? It's like, well, is there one or is there many? You can sort of go down this line. Actually, I find that this particular form of argumentation can get pretty confusing, as you probably are thinking even right now, the last 5 minutes of what I've been saying, you're like, what's that guy talking about? So this is just one way of proving emptiness. Might not be so good for a certain audience, I don't know. So second way is the diamond sliver. And this is the idea, of course, Geshe Michael talks about a lot in the Diamond Cutter book, in his course 6 of Asian Consciousness Institute, so forth. This is a famous proof of emptiness, as I mentioned before. If you cut a diamond, you get more diamonds. Only a diamond is hard enough to cut a diamond. And if you read that Diamond Cutter book, you see they have it on almost like a record player of all these diamonds, and they spin, and the diamonds on this kind of record player end up cutting the diamond that you end up putting in your ring. So only a diamond could cut a diamond. You need something as hard and as perfect as a diamond to cut a diamond. But when you cut a diamond, what do you get? You get more diamonds, right? So from an emptiness point of view, things can't arise from themselves or for anything else, or from both, or without a cause. So again, this is the idea that somehow everything's interrelated, that almost at each of these different things, it's like a piece of a diamond. When I start looking at things can't exist without causes or relationships, whatever I get in each of these relationships, I'm showing that they are relationships. I'm showing that they're empty of not being in a relationship. So that's kind of the Diamond Cutter proof. In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's just, again, just seeing it just like everything is interrelated. If everything's interrelated, there's a piece of this interrelatedness in all things, no matter how you want to do it. Okay, number 3 is denial that things exist or do not exist that could arise. Denying that a thing could grow or rise from another thing that exists, or something that doesn't exist, or from both another. So existence and non-existence, you could say these categories themselves have to be related and hence empty, right? So we can't have something come from nothing. You can't have nothing come from something, all these things. In other words, we can't have sort of like a privation and a positivity of something. There has to be a relationship there. And again, from a Buddhist point of view, even you thinking about this kind of thing is entering in a relationship even with the object of the problem here. Again, that's another proof of emptiness. Fourth thing here, denial that things could arise through any of the 4 possibilities, denying that multiple results arise from multiple causes, denying that single results come from multiple causes, denying that multiple results come from single causes, and denying that single results come from single causes, and so forth. So again, this is, if you read any of Nagarjuna's work, it has that kind of quality where it's, things can't come from multiple things can't come from single things can't come from multiple or single things at the same time, things can't come from neither multiple things or single things at the same time. So when you read that, sometimes you get to the end of the page, you're like, like what's and it's kind of repetitive, right? But when you read Nagarjuna, the whole point is he wants to show the middle way, is that there's no extreme left outside of a relationship. So he goes through all the different possibilities. And at the end of it, you see that this is the idea that you can't grasp onto one little extreme or another. You're kind of in the middle where there's nothing to hang on to. And then because everything is interrelated. And so single unrelated things drop out of the equation, right? That's the idea. And like I say, if you read Nagarjuna's 70 stanzas or anything, it's just one after the other. He's going through these long lists of things. It's not this, it's not that, it's not this and that, it's neither this or that. Like it's kind of funny that way. And then you just think, why is he writing all these books 2,000 years ago? Well, at the time when Nagarjuna came around in the, I guess it's maybe the second century, first or second century. You'd have to look that up on Wikipedia, but there was a lot of Buddhist metaphysics and philosophical problems in different schools at the time, where people started getting really, really confused in issues on ontology and epistemology. And that he sort of comes through, and it's just like a hot knife through butter. He ends up just sort of getting rid of all these kinds of questions by dissolving them, showing that they're non-issues or non-problems or just mistakes because things are empty. And then the final one, which we talked about, I believe I talked about last week, is the reasoning of interdependence, which we call the king of reasonings. Things are not self-existent, but dependent upon other things. Okay, so that's the king of reasons. We talked about dependent origination. This is I don't know which book it is, but Tsongkhapa actually says it might be his commentary to Chanakirti or Nagarjuna, where he says, like, this is the easiest proof of emptiness to understand. It's the easiest one to explain to people. It's the one where you're not going to get confused or make a mistake with it, is that things originate dependently. There's dependent origination. Like I said, for the flower to grow, you don't just need the seed, you need the sunlight, you need the water, you need the soil, you need the nutrients, this and that. So things can't originate in and of themselves. They're interdependent with everything else. Right? Everything else gives you single things depend on everything else, this kind of thing. And Thich Nhat Hanh's wonderful books go about this again and again and again when you read it. He uses beautiful examples. So of all the proofs of emptiness, those 5, they say, these great Buddhist saints say, this is the best proof, or this is the best one to use. So again, when your little niece says, Matthew or whatever, what's emptiness? Can you explain it to me? This is a good analogy to use. You can say that nothing is separate. Everything's in a relationship. Everything depends upon everything else. Everything is important. Everything has value. Everything is in sort of a web of life or a web of interconnections. Indra's net, where Indra, God, king of the gods, throws all the diamonds on the floor, and they all are reflecting one another, sort of in a web of life, so to speak, a web of reflection. That's a good one. Okay, so just finishing up here. So that's kind of the end of the teaching on the proofs of emptiness here. So why study this at all? Dharmakirti says that we need logic to prove Dharma, or at the end, we can't even take refuge, because we have to prove things like past or future lives, and so karma. So again, I know sometimes over the years when we get into this, you always have someone saying, why do I have to learn all these stupid arguments, this and that? I just want to meditate, blah, blah, blah. But technically, any of this stuff, you have to understand what it is, get clear on it, and prove it to yourself. Otherwise, you'll have doubts. You might not even know what you're meditating on, right? And again, like Dharmakirti says, unless you can prove something like even past and future lives, that mind is a continuum, and it's because it's a continuum in a causal sequence, there's no beginning or no end, you can't even take refuge. You can't even have the idea of getting enlightened, because enlightenment presupposes past and future lives of karma, that I actually have sort of an educational, organic process of self-development without limit that I'm engaged in. That allows me to take refuge. That allows me to be committed to the Buddhist path. I mean, not to make fun of Stephen Batchelor, he's a great Buddhist teacher. I like a lot of what he said, but I remember he wrote that Buddhism Without Beliefs, and he's not a dummy. So I'm not saying he's an idiot. Like, if he listened to me, he wouldn't have written that book. I'm not saying, I'm just saying that I remember seeing an interview with him at Tri-School. He says, oh, as a Buddhist, you don't have to believe in enlightenment or karma or past or future lives. That's all optional, because that's all medieval Hindu philosophy. No one believes in anymore, blah, blah, blah. This is the 21st century. We're all sort of smarter now. We don't have to believe in any of this. And I remember Robert Thurman's like, well, it was a debate between the two. It's like, you could, whatever you want, you can believe that. I don't care. But technically, that's not Buddhism. like what you're believing in, because it's all interconnected. You can see something like enlightenment, something like refuge, something like past and future lives and karma, and even emptiness. They all presuppose each other. They're all sort of interdependent, almost in a conceptual map, right? So we need logic and we need reason. We need these kinds of lists and this kind of activity to get clear on things. Now, I have here, there's a thing on Buddhist logic, which I'm not going to go into. And this is the idea that the Buddhist logic that we study, of course, is syllogistic logic, the sort of predicate logic that you get in Aristotle, for instance. And again, this was, I know, Geshe Michael Roach's teach. I have a few friends that teach that. This is where, you know, we're all monks and nuns and we're sitting there debating late at night, this and that. One of my teachers, Genlosen Chopa, who was the tutor to the previous teaching Rinpoche, he told us, you know, my teacher, David Gonzalez and Christina and I, that just do not study this kind of stuff. And we're like, why? And he's just like, look, life's short. Just meditate, learn a little bit. He's like, this stuff's really hard. And he's like, I don't know how helpful this is to Westerners. I don't know in North America at this time in whatever, 2009, if this stuff's really, really worth putting effort into, that you could be putting it into your tantric practice or whatever else. That was his opinion, of course. But you can study all this, but I've always felt that what's interesting is that if you study syllogistic logic or predicate logic, you're dealing with subjects and predicates. It's a long story short, but basically you're having to define terms, you're having to think about things, and you're having to think about relationships. So Ken Rinpoche, Loseng Tarchin in New Jersey there, he said, if you study emptiness, well, if you learn to debate properly and you learn logic, you'll end up seeing emptiness. Because, and again, you'll end up seeing the dependent origination of labeling, of with your mind, how you understand relationships. Logic is just about relationships. Like when you're, whether you're doing traditional syllogistic predicate logic or modern symbolic logic, it's all about translating relationships into a symbolic language. So it ends up being a really good exercise in using your mind on how you label the world and create the world through labels. So it ends up being a good argument on conventional reality or emptiness. So it's good. Now, you don't have to do that. You could just, again, meditate independent original. There's all sorts of ways of meditating emptiness. You don't have to run around and debate all the time. But again, it makes your mind sharp. It makes Alistair MacIntyre, a very famous English philosopher who was Aristotelian. He had a great quote that a friend of mine always used to hit me over the head with when I was in grad school. He said, if you can't prove your position to someone else, you shouldn't hold it yourself. Like if I can't explain my position in a good enough way that it would convince someone else logically, then I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's actually, there's something smart to that, right? So you should know your Buddhism enough, like if someone challenges you to a debate over a Christmas dinner, that you can hold your own a little bit. But if you as a Buddhist don't know what these concepts are yourself, that you couldn't even explain it to anyone else, well, how good is your Buddhism anyway? Like what right do you, I know I should say what right you have to call yourself, but you call yourself whatever you want, but I'm just saying that you have to have at least a little bit of a logical mind and understand this stuff, that you know what something like karma or emptiness is, enough to even prove it to yourself. So this is what, I mean, these are Dhammakarti, Dignag, all these great Buddhist saints and scholars of old, that's what they were always saying, that you have to get clear and understand a lot of these topics. So anyway, finally, just to conclude with just a little thing on emptiness and karma here, is that just like we've talked about before, is that when you start working, understanding logic or emptiness, relationships, predicate logic, working with labels, this and that, what you see yourself doing is that you're making judgments. Like anything else, you're labeling a certain thing a certain way. And the most important thing to see is that you yourself are creating reality. This is what karma is. Your mind is creating relationships, creating labels, this and that. So what's the take home for this is that reality is something constructed. It's something your mind is doing. It's not separate from you. So here's the ethical connection here, is that if it's something I do, I'm responsible for it. This is the great existentialist thing where I can't blame God or the world or the government or anything else, or the way my life has ended up. My life is my movie, my story, my book that I'm writing. But here's the take home, is that if things are coming from my mind and labeled a certain way, how come they look or are a way that I don't like? Like it's not a one-to-one thing, again, like The Secret, that I just do this and I manifest, because obviously clearly the world's full of problems and drama that I'm stuck in that I don't like, that's causing me suffering. Well, this is the Buddhist thing, is that things, of course, are coming from the past, that the labels you get that you're experiencing, the way the relationships are set up in your mind or in your experience, have been put there before in your past lives. You're experiencing them now. So this is sort of a deeper understanding of what the word suffering means here, for as a true suffering in samsara. Is the Latin word for passion means to suffer, right? So like we talk about, like in Christian medieval time, the Passion of Christ. You go to the Stations of the Cross, this is the Passion of Christ. So it's the idea that you are receiving passively an imprint of something. So in this case, in Christian philosophy, Christ is knowingly and openly, passively receiving the sufferings of the world, or your sins in particular, whatever. Suffering here in the sense that world that seems outside of my control is coming at me, and I'm suffering, kind of like wax is suffering a stamp. I'm suffering an impact of the dramas and sufferings in the world to me in my life, right? So that's what suffering is for a Buddhist, is this past karma coming at you. And the real suffering is the ignorance that I don't know that I'm responsible for that. I'm still blaming stuff coming at me when really it's come from me. Now, if that's the case, emptiness will show me that this doesn't have to be this way, that I can retrain this, reprogram, or reset this. But the key is to see this relationship between the world and my mind, that the world's coming from my mind. There we go. So that's sort of so logic, you can see when you're studying logic and studying emptiness, the point is that it's trying to get you to this conclusion. It's sort of an existentialist conclusion. It's a emancipatory message. So it's not, this is what, I mean, I read it was a good interview many years ago with Geshe Kelsey Gyatso Rinpoche, and he said, when I was in Sera Monastery and everything in Tibet in the 1950s, he's like, he wasn't being judgmental, but he's like, I met a lot of guys, monks and stuff. They'd missed the point of why we were doing this. They were either trying to get their Geshe degree to get a government job, right? In the Patala government, whatever, civil servant job, why not, right? You get summers off, vacation, salary, whatever. Or they're becoming Buddhist professors. And they're amazing debaters and writing a whole bunch of books. And he was always like, no, the only reason we're doing this, the only reason we're up late debating and studying these books is to get enlightened. That's why we're not trying to get a government job or get a job at the library, right? at Sera Monastery. We're not trying to write the next great book on emptiness. All these great books have been written. You think you're going to write a better book than Tsongkhapa or Negaji? They wrote those books. We don't need another commentary on Tsongkhapa's works. We have enough of those. Panchen Lama and Dalai Lama's wrote those. You think you're better than them to write another book? But the point is, we have to, it's the liberation potential in this message that's what's important to us. That's why we're doing the debating. And, that's, anyway, I like that. That was what he was saying. I think that's true, and that's the case. And so we shouldn't, I don't think you guys are planning on writing books on Buddhist logic, but I'm just saying the whole point is that we have to take this material, understand these proofs of emptiness, understand even a little bit of what syllogistic logic or the logical mind in Buddhism is teaching us, and then say, hey, I am responsible for my life. I've created it, and I can create it differently. If I'm suffering, I can create happiness instead. I can create enlightenment instead. And that's the great emancipatory message of the Buddha Dharma. So there we go. That's course number 2 there from Asian Classic Institute. My kind of short commentary on a whole bunch of classes. Again, please read the coursework yourself if you want a lot more material or whatever. I just sort of gave a little bit of a synopsis of it because I thought it was worthwhile. So next week, I believe, actually, hang on, let me just look at my calendar here. Anyway, I'll get back to everybody. I think next week. We still have 1 week left. Yeah, on the 21st. I don't think the Mahmood retreat is in. I will check. We can have a question and answer discussion session on what we've done over the last few weeks. Okay, thank you for coming. And let's just take a moment to dedicate all of this. Again, it's in some book, but I always remember my first teacher saying, anytime you talk, meditate, discuss, share, debate on emptiness, samsara starts shaking kind of like an earthquake. You're ready to fall apart because we're starting to question things. We're not taking things for granted. We are slowly moving out of our suffering. So we can be happy that we've done that for an hour here together. Anything that we've done, our meditation, our studying, our sharing, let's dedicate this for the enlightenment of all sentient beings, liberation of all beings. So blessings of our gurus and all holy beings, all the Dakini angels, the truth of karma, causes and their effects, that anything's possible, that we can manifest anything, and the power of a pure spirit intention, of bodhicitta, of wanting to get enlightened for the welfare of all. May all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled. Okay, thanks everybody. And let me just turn this off